Hi, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to miamighostchronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogman, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good, I hope. Everything is good here. Cold, cold, and cold. Even in North Florida, we got the tail end of that polar vortex that everybody got. So, yeah, it's been cool. And, I said in my last show, I'm a wimp. I'm a weather wimp. And especially like today, it was, because there's days that it's really cold at night, but even though it's cool in the daytime, the sun comes out, and things warm up, things dry up. But today over here, it's been drizzly, it's been damp. So when the sun goes down, it gets really cold. And I'm like, oh, I ran out there, fed my animals, fed my chickens. And by the way, see, I have two of my girls back here. There's Miss Dixie and the other one, because they are all like, they're weather wimps like me. They're little dogs and they all want to get warm. So they get up behind me. So if I look like I'm sitting a little bit weird, I'm not. It's that I've got two little dogs behind me. What can I say? Yeah, everybody wants to be close to mama, either when it thunders or when it's cold, like really cold. But anyway, let's get on to the good part. The good part is the guest that we have here tonight at Stories of the Supernatural. This is her first time here. Her name is Lily Nova. She's a UFO and space photographer, a contactee, a CE5 practitioner, cosmic channel, and psychic. Her story and UFO footage have been featured on the Travel Channel, mainstream media news all over the world, including the popular LAD Bible and the Mirror, and on Coast to Coast with George Noory. UFOs began visiting Lily during COVID while out shooting space photography. She began documenting these close encounters with her camera, determined to capture evidence and discover who these visitors were. As her experiences progressed, she learned about these otherworldly beings and how to initiate contact with them. These beings taught her mysteries of the universe, how to activate her dormant DNA, psychic gifts, and healing abilities. She now uses these gifts to channel messages, DNA activations, and healing, and teaches others how to make contact and have profound spiritual experiences on her YouTube channel. She is dedicated to sharing her findings, footage, and experiences with the world and to help others initiate contact and connect with enlightened star beings and their star families. Help me welcome her. How are you doing today, Lily?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me
Good.
on.
On the contrary, my pleasure.
Mhm.
Let me ask you, it mentions in the bio that this took off, sounds like during the COVID. Prior to that, had you had any type of experiences with UFOs or extraterrestrials at all?
Not that I had not that I knew of,
Okay.
but then I ended up finding out there have been some weird things, that I didn't really realize, but yeah, so essentially that was I'd never had anything happen before that I was aware of. It just started very abruptly and it took off like
What happened? What was that initial thing that happened to you?
So the first encounter I had, it was a random night. I was supposed to be going on an astrophotography trip the next night.
Hmm.
Um, and so I went outside. It was probably like, it was almost 2 o'clock in the morning. I went outside before bed to get some fresh air. And whenever I went out there, I looked up at the sky like I normally do, up at the stars. This was a November, a really cold November night.
Hmm.
And I immediately locked eyes with a hovering light and I
Okay.
was watching it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's moving. It's not a plane. I ruled everything else out. It's not a planet. It was just hovering like that over the neighborhood." So I started recording it, and then this weird light appeared at the end of my street. And so I looked down the street. It was this like bright orange light. And then I realized how just kind of like eerie and quiet it was. It like, and I looked back over, and as I looked back over, a second craft had appeared much closer. And this one, I saw the shape of it. I saw the lights on it. It it was right down the street, like a few houses down. It was like a diamond shaped craft
Were you
with,
wigging out yet at this point, or were you
oh,
still?
yeah. Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
be like, "Oh," you wanna see it, but then when you do see it, it's like, "What?"
Oh, yeah, everything just stopped. It's like time stopped. I started, like, shaking. You get just on high alert,
Mhm.
and I my phone was still recording. I didn't realize that I actually did capture some of it, but it was so dark, you just see it as a light. But this
Okay.
craft went up, down, side to side, very fast, and then started coming straight for me, and I just took a few steps back, and you can literally hear me on the recording. I say, "What the fuck is that?"
Uh-huh, yeah, I bet, yeah, so
And
it's
yeah, that was
like,
ve
yeah, no.
yeah, exactly, and it came right over my head and disappeared. I think it either shot straight up. At the time,
Uh-huh.
I thought it either shot straight up or it just vanished into another dimension, but it was very, very, close encounter. So that was the first
And
one.
considering what you d I imagine you didn't sleep the rest of that night because I'd be like,
I left the house at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was like, "I don't know,
yeah.
they're still here." I was like, "I don't know, they're probably watching me because they made it very clear that they
Mhm.
saw me and they came straight for me. There was no
Right, right, that's what it sounds like. It wasn't like, "Oh, you happened to be there and they were going by." It sounds like they were coming to you.
Yeah, yeah,
And then what
exactly.
happened? This is like the
So,
cliffhanger.
I kinda freaked out. I was texting my astrophotographer friend. He's like, "Oh, you probably just saw Mars." And I'm like, "You have no idea what I just."
That's
This
at
was
Mars.
Yeah, this was not a planet. Of course, everybody, wants to say that. They, doubted me in the beginning. I left and I started driving because I just didn't really know what to do. I was really
Mhm.
freaked out, pretty freaked out and just startled that night. But there was this book called that a friend had given me many years prior that I had never read, and it was something about the Great Shift. And
Okay.
I that book just popped in my head, so I ran. I had no idea where it was. I ran inside, looked through my closet, I found this book, and, I was like, "Please tell me that this talks about UFOs," and I started reading it, and it did talk about, UFOs and how there's a great shift happening on the planet, right now. So I read that, and that helped a lot, but yeah, about a month or 2 later, in January, I didn't see anything, but they gave me some time to kind of digest that. And then in January, I went out to an astronomy park by myself. And at the time, like doing research on UFOs,
Okay.
to kind of like try and figure out what I saw and what happened. And I was out by myself at an astronomy park again around 2 o'clock in the morning. I was in my car, and
Okay.
suddenly a light appears on one side on the horizon, and then I
Mhm.
look, it starts moving. It's moving back and forth, not like, a plane goes straight, it doesn't go back and forth. Another light appeared on the other horizon. There were two lights that weren't around behind me. I looked back and there were two lights behind me, and then I looked in front of me and there were lights in front of me in the tree line. uh, so essentially I was surrounded by UFOs.
Let me ask you real quick, what is an astronomy park? Are these areas that they're clear of trees or why? Why are they called that?
Yeah, it's really fantastic. I highly encourage anybody to look up if there's an astronomy park near you. So it's
Mhm.
a 24-hour park, and essentially it's just kind of like a field. You can set up telescopes there and stuff, and
Okay.
it's far enough away from the city where you
Yes.
can actually see some good stars. So there were cornfields surrounding me. It wasn't a busy area. It was pretty rural.
So, you know what the flip side of that is? Is like, what's that horror film, the trope, nobody will hear you scream? It's
I know, right?
when you said that thing about the cornfields, it's like, oh, okay. But anyway, so here you are, you're getting more than one.
Mhm.
And how are you feeling? What were you thinking when this is happening? And you're like, I hope they're friendly or what?
Um, yeah, I was just amazed, but I was more curious. I was very
Okay.
curious. My immediate response was, "I have to film this," because nobody believed me after I
Okay.
saw my first one. So I
Okay.
started recording. I had my nice camera with me, my DSLR camera, so I started recording
Mm-hmm.
with that. I started recording with my phone, trying to capture, and I did capture footage. Um,
Okay.
and I was afraid to leave because I was surrounded. In my car, I was parked in the middle of the night. So
Okay.
I didn't know if they knew, these UFOs knew that I was there. So I didn't wanna turn on my car
Right.
and
Like
bring
just what if
attention.
they don't know, realize that I'm here and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so I thought maybe I was catching them up to something. I was like, "Oh my god,
Mm-hmm.
there's something going on here." So I just immediately went into investigator mode and started documenting it. So I was trying to wait them out for them to leave. Finally, the sun starts coming up. I was up there
Wow.
recording them for nearly 5 hours. Once the sun started coming up and they were still there,
Mm-hmm.
I started seeing some cars coming down the road, then I felt safe enough to start my car and leave. So that happened, and then after that, I was just obsessed. I saw them 3 nights in a row. At that, I saw them the next night and the night after that.
Okay.
The second time at the astronomy park again. The third time I went up there with a friend. They didn't show up, but my friend said, "We're definitely being watched." I did feel them there, and I did see
Right.
something. He didn't see something, but I saw something that I couldn't explain.
Had there been
Um,
sightings at that astronomy park before that you'd heard of or no?
Not that I knew of, no, not that I
Okay.
knew of. But there's some weird things with that area. There's like a kind of like a nuclear waste area not too far from
Okay.
there.
Okay.
There's, I believe, some just kind of like sketchy military stuff going on around there.
Okay. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Yeah, that's where I'm going with that. Like,
yeah,
was there something about this area that's an attractant, as
yeah,
far as UFO visits?
yeah, I think
S-
so.
So here they know, well, so what happened after this? Have they ever gone to where you live, like
Yeah,
home?
the 3rd night,
Okay.
whenever I went up to the astronomy park and I brought a friend with me so that somebody else could witness this. They didn't
Uh-huh.
show up there, but whenever I pulled up to my house, and again, I stayed up super late. I got home probably about 4 o'clock in the morning. There were 2. It looked like a star at first, but it was moving, and I
Okay.
recorded it. I recorded it for about 20 minutes as the sun was coming up, and then a second one appeared, and they were just kinda moving back and forth right outside of my house, to as to say, like, then I felt like a relationship was developing with them. Like, I was talking to
Okay.
them. I wasn't sure if they could hear me at that point, but I was talking to them, and I felt like they were trying to kinda show me or teach me something. That's when I realized, "Okay, this is personal. They're at my house now."
Yeah. Yeah. It's you, in other words. It's not that you were at a certain place and we crossed paths. It's you.
Yeah.
Let me when you were looking at these crafts, I mean, did you ever get a chance to see what shape they were or anything like that?
So the first one was probably the uh best look that I got at one. That one was like a diamond shaped, it was some shape that we don't have any shape like that,
Okay.
um, with a strip of red and green lights, and it looked like a dark gray metallic, so it was like a diamond shape. Um,
Okay.
a lot of the other ones that I've seen have been more of like orbs of light, or they've just looked like light. So I haven't seen
Yes.
any flying saucers. I would love to see a
Right.
flying saucer though.
I know that everybody sometimes has different, they got the oblong, the cigars,
Mhm.
there's different, and it makes you think, is it all the same ETs? Are they different ETs, each bring
Right,
their own spaceship
right.
around?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
I think there's a big variety out there. Mhm.
right, right. So when did they ever get more, how can I say it? As far as that there was no doubt in your mind, okay, I'm communicating with them and they're communicating back.
Hmm. Yeah, so that happened shortly after that. So within a 2-week period,
Mhm.
starting that night whenever I was surrounded, I saw
Okay.
them every single day,
All right.
for 2 weeks. So 13, 14 times. And at that point,
Okay.
I was like, okay, this is no coincidence. They're following me. They're trying to tell me something. I even contacted MUFON, and MUFON, I had a meeting with them, and
Okay.
the Mutual UFO Network,
Yes.
the
Yes.
investigators, they were concerned for me because they said your case is very peculiar. They
Okay.
were actually concerned. Um,
Yes.
Shortly after that, I went out kind of like hunting, not hunting for them, but searching
Yeah.
for them with my camera. And I spent all night, and I literally felt like it got super cloudy. The clouds turned red. It was really just weird. Everything about that night was super weird.
Okay.
I was driving around with my camera. I found a spot in the sky that looked very odd, not natural at all. These two holes in the sky. So
Okay.
I pulled up, and this was right across from my house. I pulled up and I parked and I started recording the sky. And I was essentially asking, saying, I know you're up there. What
Mm-hmm.
do you want? Can you show yourself? And after doing that for a moment and I'm recording, so it's very hazy, very cloudy. So if you can just imagine, I'm sitting in my car
Yes.
looking up, very foggy, hazy. These three lights in the shape of a triangle lower down above me,
Oh, okay.
right? Right above me. And you can hear my voice. The camera wasn't pointed at that spot, unfortunately, so I didn't catch it, but you can hear my reaction. And my reaction is, "Uh, I see three lights. I see three lights. I come in peace."
Yeah, please. Yeah,
I,
that's the thing, that we're, whichever way you look at it, if anything, if this goes sideways, I'm gonna get the short end of the stick on this. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So they let me ask you, do you think, because you mentioned it earlier, that what they travel is through portals or as inter or interdimensional
Mhm.
rifts, or because we always think of, originally we always thought of them coming like in linear, like light years of travel. But I
Mhm.
know a lot of people think, well, no, maybe they're traveling through interdimensional portals or rifts or whatever you want to call them. What's
Yeah.
been your experience on how they are coming into this world?
Yeah, most definitely. Portals are a really big part of that. Um,
Okay.
For sure. Their technology is out of literally out of this world, very, very advanced, and they've shown me vision. So since all this happened, I've developed a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with them, and I got to, like, meet the beings that I was seeing and
Okay.
all that. So they've taught me, a lot of things, but, there are ships all around the sky,
Okay.
like, at all times, and they cloak. So they're cloaked, and then they can be in another dimension. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like a radio with the frequency. You're on, one radio station and you hear a song, you turn it just a little bit, there's a different song. It's very, very much like that. If they change they can lower their frequency to be into our dimension, our 3D
Right.
dimension, and then we can see them, or they can raise their frequency and we can't see them.
Right. Which is,
Yeah.
you hear a lot of these people that have had sightings of UFOs. Well, say 1 minute they were there, and then in a second they were gone. Not that they saw them shoot off; they kind of like totally disappear.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I've got
And
pictures. I've got a picture of a portal. It looked like a tear. Um,
really,
yeah, I don't know if
let me see. Go ahead. Is it on your? Is it on your?
I'm checking to see if I got it on me. I do have it on me. So I can share my screen if you'd like.
Okay, yeah. But this is the thing that do since you've been in communication with them, do you think at some point are they really gonna? How can I say this? Are they gonna disclose about themselves versus, you know, because we keep hearing about all these people, and it's
Mhm.
like we're waiting for them to say, okay, we don't need government agencies to tell us, hey, there's ETs and UFOs. We're gonna let you know we're here.
Right. Yeah, I think at this point they're definitely working with leaders, some
Okay.
leaders on Earth. They always show me like them shaking hands with
Okay.
people of Earth. There are good humans and bad humans also. There are bad
Sure.
humans that don't want this to come out. So they're
Sure.
trying to you know, spreading misinformation and also making fun of
Sure.
it. Now
Oh
they're
yeah.
forced because so much is happening now, like you can't deny it. Um,
Exactly.
but I think the ETs, they're commun so many people are starting to have their own personal experience because you can tell somebody, yeah, aliens exist or UFOs are real. But if
Right.
they have their own experience, they know beyond the shadow of a doubt. You cannot tell
Absolutely.
somebody. So I
Yeah.
think
It's
right
like,
now, right. Yeah,
you're right,
right.
right. Like, hey, I may never have that picture or that proof, but I know what I experienced. I
Yeah.
know, that's enough. I know what I saw,
Yeah.
you know.
So I think right now they are revealing themselves to as many
Okay.
people as possible, get kind of warming us up to the idea. And I think by the 2030s there will be open contact. Hopefully
Right.
before then, but yeah, within the next 10 years, I think they
Right.
will be on the ground with us.
And I think a lot of people want to believe, but at the same time, they're scared of a hoax being played on them. You
Right.
know, they're like, yeah, I want to believe, but what if somebody's saying, and I'm, like, I don't know, you saw that in Miami, they even had the
Yeah.
police swarm this place,
Yeah.
and you got, and I think I agree for them to dispatch that many police,
Something
something
happened.
had to have been happening. And then there's the other say that no, that was a hoax. And it's like, okay, was there something really there? Wasn't, or was it just, and at the same time, manpower being what it is, I can't see them sending all these police
Mhm.
for nothing because usually the first unit that they dispatch will get there and go, "Oh, forget it. This is a joke. Somebody's, doing
Yeah.
something. If there's any units en route, forget it. Tell them to go back for this is, whatever it is. It's not, but for
Right.
that many, it's like makes you wonder, was that something genuine?
Well, and I remote viewed it too
Oh, okay.
afterward, and I did see it was a lot more than I anticipated. I wasn't sure first, initially, I thought Stranger Things. This is like
Right.
some sort of Stranger Things because 'cause they're at a
Uh-huh.
mall. I know that there are covert operations, bad humans, and
Yes.
positive humans that are
Right.
working with this advanced technology and messing with things. Uh and that's essentially very similar to what it was, kind of like a Stranger Things type event. There was a portal that opened, and there
Okay.
were, from what I saw, and I saw positive, like spiritual entities and some negative ones, and I saw
Okay.
benevolent ETs, and the
Mhm.
ETs kind of allowed this to happen in in cooperation with the positive humans that want disclosure to because
Right.
humanity needs to see this is what they told me.
Oh, yeah, I
Humanity
think that
needs to see it.
just about now I tell everybody, we've been conditioned, if you wanna call it enough, that, yeah, there's gonna people that are gonna wig out, whatever, but, everybody will have a drink and say, "Okay, well, alright, let's get on to it. Let's see the truth." I
Yeah,
think by now, everybody wants to say, "Hey, it's not sci-fi anymore. How's that?"
right. Yeah,
And I think most humans are ready. They'll be able to handle it,
yeah. So much
you
has
know?
happened the past few years, it's like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
next, you know?
Uh, of course, and it's like, and I'm gonna go with Hollywood because Hollywood has shaped so much of our how we perceive the ET UFO thing.
Mhm,
Either they're friendly and they're here to help us out, or they want to conquer us. And
mhm,
so I think people are like, and you get people the some of the Hawkings, before he died, he was saying, "Oh, you know what? Um, if there's ever UFO or extraterrestrial contact, we might be on the losing end of that because they're going to be technologically more advanced than we are." I was like,
mhm,
well, maybe, but hopefully they're not like that.
mhm.
What's
Yeah.
been it sounds like your feedback with them has not been negative, on the contrary, right?
No, yeah, I had very, very positive experiences with them. Very loving. These beings have evolved beyond, beyond that, but there are
Okay.
some who haven't. There's a combination of that out there. So there's different types of ETs.
Is there such a
Um,
thing as those reptilians that everybody talks about running around?
there are.
Oh,
Yep.
here we go.
I have yeah, I know. I know that was one of the things where I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? And it took me a while to, see that, but I mean, yeah.
And you
Yeah,
know what?
so
That's one of the things that's like, I've heard different, we have we have the tall ones and the ones that look like this and the grays. But the one everybody agrees on is that the reptilians are evil, or they're not. Yeah, they're a problem. Everybody that gives feedback on the type of different types of
mhm.
ETs, these are a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they've definitely, and not all of them. There are some that are very ancient, very wise. There's even different types of races within that.
Okay.
But when it comes to Earth, yes, the problem species is that. That's the problem species that has
What
been
is their interest in us?
um our DNA is a big
Okay.
interest. So we have some reptilian in us too.
Mhm.
Our
Yes.
reptilian brain, and we have at least 22 different types of extraterrestrial genetics within us. So we're like we're hybrids already. Humans are hybrids.
Right. Right.
Um, apparently, our DNA is like we are genetic royalty, and coming from a science background, we are only functioning off of a very small percent of our DNA. Scientists have been saying that 95, 96, 97% of our DNA is junk and it doesn't
Mhm.
appear to be doing anything. They say the same about the brain. We're only using about 5% of our brain. So we've been kind of like suppressed in this way. But
Right.
as we are evolving and in awakening to what, is really going on, what our reality really is, we're starting to tap into that DNA and more of our brain power, and we're very special. Really, we've got a lot of
Right.
potential.
Right, because I'm thinking even if genetic material, even if let's say the goal is our genetic material, you know, species can't, how can I say, breed,
Mhm,
unless they have enough likes,
mhm,
you know.
mhm,
And even then, sometimes you'll get offspring, but the offspring are sterile. All right.
mhm,
So I imagine if they have some interest, we must have something very similar to what they have. If
mhm.
what they're looking at is our genetics, as far as like
Yeah.
hybridization or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, essentially there's a lot of master geneticists out there,
Okay.
and they can splice up our DNA in a lab. I don't know how they do it, but they're very,
Right.
very advanced with it. So they can, and I think humans, we are very, what's the word? I don't yeah, we can be mixed and matched with a lot of different species because we are a lot
That
of different species.
that might be, yeah, let me tell you something. That might be I could see where something like that would be attractive, where
Mhm.
we might not know it, but we might be like rich genetically
Yeah,
when compared to other species, whatever. And
yeah,
that's the attractant uh for them,
right.
and especially, I imagine, let's say, people don't realize that, and again, this is just me guessing, if let's say somebody or a species loses their planet,
Right.
you'll have finite amount of members that you eventually are going to need new genetic material to keep reproducing, because what you got left is going to die out, because you can
Right.
only interbreed so much, and even their lifespan, whatever it might be. So you could see that, that
Mhm.
if that was the case, they would
Mhm.
always be looking for something, like you said, even if they have to work, like tweak it genetically,
Mhm.
where
Yep.
maybe that's why we're so special. But
Yep. Yeah.
so
Yep. You're on it.
do you feel that, um are they with you all the time? Or is it only when you want, or how do they initiate contact with you?
Mhm. So, in the beginning, as I started initiating contact with them and realized then I could make contact with them too. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and share that real
Yeah.
quick. Um, so I'll show you the portal
Okay.
one. Oh, where is it?
Don't worry, that happens to me all the time. Where
Okay, here it is. So this I was up at a park and
Mm-hmm.
you can see me over here
Yep.
and I would set up the camera and then to the right over here,
What is that?
yeah, they showed up. So I was taking a bunch of photos in a row, a time lapse. They only showed
Uh-huh.
up for a split second in one photo, and this is what I got. So it looks like a portal tearing in two
Yes.
black triangles.
Okay. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. I'm telling you, you're braver than I am. I think if I see like that, like that sky, nice blue with a little white clouds, and I see something like that, I'd be like, "What?" Tuck in the
So
cover.
It happened so fast that I actually didn't even see it with my eye, but it showed
Mhm.
up on the camera. I caught, what I found a lot of the time is that, they cannot be in our visible light spectrum sometimes, but the camera picks up
We'll capture
more
it.
of the light spectrum, so that's why some people capture, ghosts and orbs on camera, but they don't see it with their
Yes.
own eyes. So that's essentially this, because this wasn't a very public, uh, place, and I got another this is one of my best photos of them at the same location. So, there's me, uh,
Okay.
sitting up meditating. I set up the camera to take a bunch of pictures in a row, and then I
There it
got
is. Wow, look at that. Oh my God. Wow,
one where it's clearer.
that is incredible.
Isn't that crazy? So I don't even know what kind of a ship that is. That orange
It
thing
almost looks, I don't know if it's emotion or what is that, or if it's just coming through. It's like,
in each photo, I got it in 3 different photos, and it looks different in each photo, like it was kind of like morphing and
mhm,
manifesting. And it
right.
yeah.
Right, because back in 2005, I heard of one that was following a Navy ship out of the coast. Was it in California? Well, no, I take it back. The ship was built in Norfolk, Virginia. Eventually, it went to Coronado Island, but it followed the ship for like a few days. And basically, what they described was a ball of light, but not like, in other words, like, when the edges are like wavy, that
Mhm.
kind of deal.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that you could say, oh, it was a spaceship with this. It
Mhm.
was it was like an orb shape, but with a wavy, and it followed the ship for like 3 days, and everybody was wigged
Wow.
out, and from what I understand, the crew was told you know how they usually keep logs? This happened or that happened, or when you come on the watch?
Mhm.
I read where basically the sailors were told, "Don't report this," and if anybody had made a report on any of their logs, those entries were extracted.
Wow, of course
And
they
this was
were.
like in 2005, around that
Mhm.
time. And I remember that they had interviewed anonymously some of the sailors, and this was like 4 years after 9/11. So of course everybody's like kind of still wigged out. Like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, what is this? So they were kind of like, why is nobody, the superiors, why aren't they like going like, hey, we're being followed around by wavy
Right.
orange orbs, you know?
Yeah,
And there you go.
definitely. I wanna show you one other one. This is where this is where I had a golden orb appear, and
Look at that.
it kind of looks like there's a little dent in it. I don't know what
Yes.
that is, and it just
Yeah.
looks kinda different. You see waves in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a golden orb.
Yes. Wow. That is incredible. And that's the thing, you don't know. Is there something in the middle, and this is, like you said, part of the cloaking mechanism it has?
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
so with this one specifically, it sent me a telepathic vision. This was the first time I saw them, and,
okay.
I saw a being. She was laying on a table, and she had light blue skin and
Mhm.
no hair, but she looked very similar. She looked basically human, just with no hair and light blue skin, and she had a skin tight silver uniform on, kind of like a Star Trek type uniform, and there were crew members standing behind her with the same uniform. But she had her eyes closed, so I felt like maybe she was using her consciousness to project this golden orb in some
Okay.
way. Is kind of like the feeling that I got, that she was using. So they use consciousness
Okay.
assisted
In other
consciousness
words, yes, they have
technology.
what's the word I'm looking, not telekinetic, it's not only telekinetic, but their mind, how's that?
Yeah,
You
yep,
know?
yep, yeah, exactly. So
Whereas some people need, we always think of, we have to manipulate everything. They're m we're yeah, no, we're far from that.
right.
Um,
Well, and that's
that's
what Elon Musk is trying to do with his Neuralink thing, like, kind of
mhm.
merge the mind with technology, but, so he's
I don't
kinda got the idea of it, but the extraterrestrials, yeah, they use technology, way more advanced.
right, because I'm thinking at the end of the day, which, you know, what Elon is thinking, basically you have to have they have to insert it. They
Yeah,
have to put what in there. Whereas it sounds like this is something that you have there.
Yeah.
I,
You
I
don't
was
need to put
assuming
a chip in your head. You
you
don't
don't
have
have
to
to put
do
a
that.
chip. Your
Yeah.
brain can all go into that to be able to do that. And
Right.
I have heard of that where that cloaking, like they were telling me one time where I can't, was it a camera or binoculars? I want to say it was a camera, but it was one of these specialized cameras for dark so that you could. And he says that he looked and he saw the crap because he was with a friend
Mhm.
in out in Colorado somewhere,
Yeah.
and they were in the middle of nowhere. And he's like it was his brother-in-law, as a matter of fact. He's saying his brother-in-law didn't see it with a naked eye, but when he
Yeah.
brought it up, he could see it through the camera lens. And he's like, "It's right there." His brother-in-law saying, "I don't see anything."
Uh,
And
yeah.
and he says, "But when you look through the camera lens, you could see it. You could
Mhm.
see it was like right there." And I was like, "Well, that." Then you think of these shows like Star Trek, back when it came out with that cloaking idea. It's like, was Gene Roddenberry just did he know something we didn't, or was he just channeling, technology?
Yeah, I was actually just reading something the other night where Gene Roddenberry, he was working with it was either I don't know if it was Gene's father or somebody else's father he was working with was a very high up member in secret, programs, secret, like,
Mhm.
space programs. So he
Right.
probably, gave him some of that information.
Or maybe they had conversations and she's like, "Wow, that's."
Yeah,
And of course, back when that came out, it was like pure sci-fi,
right.
but there's a lot of I want to say older. If you look at that movie The Thing,
Mhm.
um the idea was that in other words, the how can I say it? The life form had been here millions of years, and that's another thing that sometimes I think about. We always think of them as a recent arrivals; they just got here, and I'm thinking, what if they've been around or hibernating for maybe millions of years, or whatever. And
Right.
everybody assumes, even though everybody's seen Ancient Aliens, but still, it makes you think,
Yeah.
how long have they been around? Did
Mhm.
they tweak with the dinosaurs, or did they just arrive on the scene after humans were here? Or and I'm sure you've heard
Mhm.
that they were the kind of like the ones that's why we went from being like a primate kind of person to modern
Mhm.
man
Yeah.
kind of thing, where they gave us the a boost up, or maybe did
Right.
something did some splicing on our genetics.
Yep.
That's no, I can let me tell you something. I can see where the disclosure on this, I think things would close down for about a couple of weeks, because I think a lot of people would be like, "What? What? What are we?" And now there's what was it the other day? What was it? Was it a moon on? I want to say, was it Venus? Yeah, Venus, not Jupiter. I don't know. Either Jupiter or Venus. One of these moons are finding that has water there, like that. There's a possibility of
Wow.
life. And again, carbon based as we know it. There could be other life forms that we just don't understand because we're carbon based, but
Mhm.
it opens up the door, because we're trying to get to Mars really hard, but maybe there's other places out there that are kind of
Mhm.
compatible with us, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think they I have even heard of, that Venus is inhabited, but it's underground.
Well, I've heard, and you tell me what you think. I've heard even that the moon, that basically, here we go. And by this, I'm not saying one way or the other, please. Sometimes I have guests, and it's like, that the moon really was, we always think of the moon as, yes, the satellite of the earth, and it was, a natural, but that the moon was brought there, and that basically there's either it's being either used inside, like almost like a space station kind of deal,
Yeah.
you know. And that's one that's like, which is, they say, is one of the reasons why we supposedly have never gone back to the moon,
Yeah.
since the 60s.
Yeah. That's
Which,
sketchy.
well, and you ask yourself, if you went through all this, space race and everything, that's if we really did go, because I know there's people going, "We never did go to the," okay, whatever. But let's assume that we did go to the moon. You would
Mhm.
think, why wouldn't we return? We
Right.
have a space station,
Mhm.
but you would
It
think,
doesn't
why,
make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
right? Why wouldn't we keep on, um, make a space station on the lunar level surface?
Mhm.
And even now they're saying that that's why these countries like China and India are sending these unmanned things, is because they have frozen water that can be used to
Mm.
propel us closer to Mars. I mean, we are going in leaps and bounds as far as outer space, but
Mhm.
I still think there's a lot of stuff here on Earth
We
that,
need to fix.
oh, we need to fix, we need to figure out, we need to like, you know,
Right,
uh,
exactly. Most
and
definitely.
so in looking at what Lily, what happened? Have you contacted other people or other people come to you that said, "Hey, I think I've either been an abductee or contactee or that you've helped out because they're not really sure what happened to them?"
Yeah, tons of people. Yeah, I get emails pretty frequently, and I have a YouTube channel, so I get
Okay.
a lot of people who have had experiences or they've seen ships, um, and then yeah, a lot of people who are just starting to have
Okay.
these experiences, and they're wanting to know, what the heck's going on.
Have any of them, and the reason why I say this is I did hypnosis for many years,
Mhm.
and sometimes recovered memories will come to you, not because you've been hypnotized, but they just start coming to you because at some point your mind realizes you are ready
Yep.
to remember.
Yeah.
Maybe before that, have you ever had people that have come to you and said, "Hey, I'm either having really weird dreams or something like that," where they realize this is not just a dream, there's something, and they kind of remember being aboard a ship or anything like that?
Yeah, that definitely has happened. A lot of time in dreams, definitely.
Okay.
That
Mhm.
even the first one that comes to mind is my mom. Like, I found out in the last year that
Okay.
it just hasn't just been me. It runs in my family.
Oh,
My
okay, okay.
Yeah, my dad had passed almost 10 years ago now, but he was the one who showed me ancient aliens, and he
Mhm.
was interested, we'd go camping, and then he I remember I didn't have like glasses or contacts, so I couldn't see very far away, but he was like,
Right.
"Look there, I think that's a UFO up there." And it was just me and him, and I couldn't see it because I was like blind. But he was the one who was like very interested in that or open to
Right.
that. So I know that he definitely there's a connection there. But yeah, this past year I found out that my mom, she used to live near Roswell,
Okay.
and she saw a UFO. She was out stargazing by herself. She saw it go, and then she said it stopped and turned around, and it freaked her out. And shortly after that, she had a dream where
Mhm.
she was like on a table, like on I don't know if she's on a table, but she was in a ship and it was
Okay.
dark. And I told her, I was like, "Mom, that was not a dream. That was a memory." You don't have
Okay.
that randomly. If you ever see anything, what I found through talking to people and doing
Mhm.
sessions, I do readings with people. So sometimes I'll get information that way. Um, if you have a dream like that, it's not just a dream. It could be a past life memory or something
Right.
from this lifetime that has just been hidden, and you just get kind of like a little piece of it. I think that happens to many of us, and we don't even realize it.
Sure. Sure. People don't realize that sometimes, how can I say, because your subconscious is always recording everything. So
Yeah.
just because you don't remember it consciously doesn't mean you don't know it.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think, you know how you sometimes depending on what was their encounter, they need to marinate it in their head for maybe a couple of years
Yeah.
before they can, okay, that happened to me, and whatever, or
Mhm.
people like, I don't know, I'm sure you've heard of them, people that lose time,
Yeah.
like all of a sudden 3 hours have gone by, and or they got home, or they were going someplace, and then they started and then they ended, but the in between they lose it.
Yeah. Mhm.
And everybody's different. Some people can accept it right away, and there's other people that they they need to they can't. For them, I think that their existence would tilt to the side if they actually consciously thought, I had contact with an extraterrestrial. They'd
Right.
be like, I can't handle that. No.
Yeah. It's a big paradigm shift, just everything shifts.
Sure.
You can't look at things the same
No.
once
No.
you realize it.
Do they
Definitely.
do you think overall, or from what information you that they're mostly friendly towards us, or are they, how can I say it? Not one or the other.
Mhm.
Like we don't hate you, we don't love you, we're just here for whatever we're doing. What's the impression you've gotten?
So a lot of us, like I call them star family because it
Okay.
feels like feels like family. Like, I feel immense love whenever
Okay.
I connect with them. Whenever I was first starting to make contact with them and I would go out with my camera and all that, I knew that they were around whenever my heart just filled up, my chest would swell with love, and I would just start crying because
Okay.
they they're very, very, very loving, just loving beings. They're very high vibrational beings. So it's like an
Mhm.
unconditional love that you don't really experience that much on Earth. So I believe that's a majority of them. I do believe there are also so there's groups of ETs, specifically the Pleiadians, which they look
Mhm.
Nordic, the blonde ones.
Yes.
We're very closely related to them, so we're kind of like their younger siblings. That's how they think of us as. Like they're teaching us, trying to help guide us along the way. And we're torching the planet. We're doing a lot of
Right.
bad stuff. So they're trying to help guide us.
Mhm.
Um, so and I believe that they are protecting us too from anybody,
Okay.
any other visitors. But we have also had interference from negative reptilian beings too,
Mhm.
who have made agreements with some of the darker government.
Right. Right. Like
Yeah,
quid pro quo, like, "Hey, we'll give you some technology in
yeah,
exchange for XYZ, we're gonna kidnap
right,
some of your people and,
yeah,
hey, you want that
and for
technology? It's not gonna
weapons.
be free." Yeah, weapons, well, everything. It could
Hmm.
be a host of stuff
Right.
that, that we're just and let's face it, when you look at competing governments, everybody wants to be the one up, who has
Hmm.
the most information
Right.
or defense, whatever. But
Right.
the do you think that at some point, I guess, which is like, well, Marlene, that's a $64,000 question, which is I think that a lot of people, and maybe that's my own personal, it's like, I don't want to wait for some government agency to
Hmm.
decide they're going to disclose to us. It's like, thanks,
Hmm.
that I'm hoping that they're going to disclose on themselves, in
Yeah.
a way that's not, cannot be, how can I say, overlooked.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that's ever possible?
I think so. So what I'm getting right now is that we need to get ready. So we need to and it's like it's already starting, that
Hmm.
we're seeing people are seeing things all over the world, and that's just going to get more and more and more and more and more. But we need to raise our frequency. We
Okay.
we need to help awaken as many people as possible, and we need to start coming together.
Okay.
So we
Do
really
they,
need to get ready
do
before they
you,
do that.
have they ever, and I don't know, this is maybe have they ever shared with you their belief system in like a universal creator? How's that? That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah,
But
so very, very interesting. So we're all connected. They were the ones who told me that. The
mhm.
ones that really taught me that. They said we are all, we're all one, we're all connected. So, what we do to our neighbor, we're doing to ourselves. What we do to them, essentially on the grand scale, we're doing to ourselves. After I started having these UFO encounters and talking to these ETs, then I started having spiritual encounters, and I
Okay.
started seeing angels. I saw
Okay.
Jesus. I started
Wow.
communicating with God. Yeah, it
Okay.
blew my mind. So it's not a competing thing at all. It actually goes hand
Okay.
in hand.
Let me ask you, because I know you said your mom. Did you ever ask her if there was any family? And the reason why I ask is that I've heard that there's even generations of families
Yeah.
that, some
Mhm,
people talk about it and others don't, but
mhm,
some that do, they say, yeah, my grandmother, I have grandparents,
mhm,
especially if they've lived like in a certain area, a certain house for a length of time,
mhm,
where they go through years and years of having some type of either sightings of UFOs or contact. Do you
mhm.
know if it ever went further back than your mom?
Um, So I asked my grandmother recently on my mom's side.
Mhm.
She doesn't remember having anything, but I do believe that it was happening to her too, and she didn't know it. And then on my dad's side, unfortunately, they're mostly gone. But my dad's side was the one who they had like the heightened psychic abilities, which is
Okay.
which goes very hand in hand with UFO and extraterrestrial encounters. Usually that like unlocks your psychic abilities.
Sure.
So I didn't get to ask my dad's side, unfortunately, but I do know like doing some meditation on it myself, and in
Hmm.
some information that I've received through the ETs. It's gone on both sides of my family, at
Okay.
least to my grandparents, maybe even further
Right.
back.
Right, exactly. And again, this is another thing that people don't realize. Once upon a time, even if you did see something like that, you kind of kept it to yourself because you didn't want to be
Yeah,
that one guy, have the guys in white show up, with a straight jacket and
yeah.
cart you off. So
Or the
sometimes,
Men in Black.
or the men in black, of course, that people like that you were like, I don't want to be the odd person out because stuff like that, people don't realize would follow you around. Like you'd always be that one person. Yeah, who saw it, he saw that. Yeah, well, he's kind of like
Yeah,
so
exactly.
people kinda, like, said, like, they kept it in the family, like, "Hey, don't ever talk about this to anybody."
Right.
Um,
So I think
is
we're
it
making great progress right now. People are starting to, it's going mainstream now, and people are
it
finally
is.
starting to
It
talk about it.
is. It is, and that's well, the stigma that, like I said, that usually was attached that God knows if it was a career killer, if you were, like, in any type of job description, a pilot, a police officer, military, you started saying that you had seen a UFO or had any type of contact, forget it.
Right.
So there's a lot of them that said, "Nah, you know what? I gotta support my family. I'm just gonna keep quiet about this." And you even
Mhm.
hear now about these pilots that now that they've retired, that they were saying, "Oh yeah, we would have these encounters and we would be debriefed, and they even would make us sign these non-disclosure,
Oh my.
paperwork where, and we knew you know, we would either get booted out or something if we ever talked about it." So,
Wow.
so people like say, "Forget it. And even and I said this in one of my prior shows, Mac Rosell, which was the guy that found the Roswell debris,
Mm.
later on in life, they asked him, and he said that the biggest mistake he had ever made was bringing that material forward. He thought he was doing the right thing because apparently, I don't know whether, and there's some question whether it was that he got threatened or coerced or something that he never wanted to talk about it again, and he said the biggest mistake he had ever made was coming forward with what he had found,
Wow.
because it kind of, like, overshadowed his life after that,
Right.
um,
Yeah. A lot of
and
people's lives have been ruined because of it.
yes, 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 and they even said, originally, you remember they were saying that Roswell, that was a weather balloon, and
Mhm.
he was a rancher. Well, he worked on ranches, like these open spaces, and he said, I've seen weather balloons." Like, in other words, he knew that what he was seeing was not a weather balloon.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's the difference between then and now. And again,
Mhm.
I'm hope. Even though, let me ask you, don't you? Let's give it a different spin a little bit. They've had these congressional hearings about UFOs. I'm thinking,
Mhm.
wait a minute. For years and years, you guys have been in denial and kind of
Yeah.
tried to make anybody that came forward look like they're crazy.
Yeah.
Why now? What do you
Right.
think is behind that? That all of a sudden they're willing to have meetings, whereas before they were like, nah, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because you really have to the ETs tell me right now you really, 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 really have to have discernment. It's very
Yes.
important to have discernment because it's basically an information war is what's
Yes,
happening
I
right
believe
now.
that. I believe that. Yes. Let's
Yeah.
face it, that's really, between the internet and, before there used to be three main channels and things like that, as far
Mhm.
as news, let's say the news or anything like that. So it was, you could pretty much control it. How's that?
Right,
As
yeah.
far as the information that got out, but now forget it. It's like,
Yeah.
with one of these people, you become a newscaster. I was like, hey, look, yeah, that's it.
Mhm.
Word gets out. So,
Right. Yeah, so I think you really, really have to have discernment. I think that Grush I feel pretty good about him,
mhm,
and, if have you heard of Dr. Greer?
of
Dr.
course,
Stephen
yes,
Greer?
Steve Weir, yes.
I like what he's got going on, and he's been working with and he explains it very well, actually. So he's been talking to members of government for many,
Hmm.
many years, and so there's like a positive, good government that wants disclosure, and then there's like
Right,
a small group on the side that tries to just ruin everything and keep everything quiet. So
right.
there's kind of like competing factions in there. But yeah, I believe that some of these people are very, very protected.
Sure.
And especially with, like, the Miami Mall incident that just happened. I think at this
Mhm.
point, there's no stopping disclosure and what's going to happen. So
Yes.
the we'll call them the bad guys, the guys who are trying
Mhm.
to keep this all covered up. They're really just on borrowed time, essentially.
Right.
But you still have to really feel in your heart whenever news comes up, you know,
Right.
feel how it feels to you.
Right. And I tell everybody, I'm sorry if I'm a little bit cynical when I have, some of these senators and these things like coming up, and it's like I question it. And maybe what they want to do is disclose, but then part of me is like, is there a reason why all of a sudden you're like wanting to have hearings? And
Mhm.
they even have all these senators were before most senators or House representatives, they would stay away from that like the plague, like UFOs, what? Eat it down, man. Like
Yeah.
forget it.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know if there's something behind it or it's just simple like, hey, maybe they're coming to terms where we're gonna have to talk about this sooner or later because
Yeah. I
they're gonna
think
out
enough
us.
people right, I think enough people are starting to stand up for it,
Okay.
that we're actually now starting to gain momentum on it,
Do you think
is
we've
a
ever been
thing.
exchanged? But I don't know if I'm sure you've seen that movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind that came out, what was in the 80s. And at the end they do like basically they take humans with them as a like in an like you remember like a student exchange kind of deal, but
Yeah,
more like a species. Do you think that's ever happened with us?
that's a good question. I do think that there are some humans up there, and I do believe
Okay.
that there are some ETs down here that look very human.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard
Yeah.
of that. I've heard of that, you know, or did you get say anyhow, I'm going back to Hollywood. The other day, as a matter of fact, I saw that movie with Roddy Piper. They live the one where, all of a sudden you put on the glasses and you see what they look like. Otherwise, they look like humans. It was like, all right, it's like that's the big head game. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard that the hybridization they've gotten to the
Mhm.
point where they could pass as humans.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
Well, and that's what they're doing with these families too, from my understanding. Maybe not all of them, but, certain ones. They are going down through the generations, and they're
mhm,
upgrading the DNA
right,
bit by bit with each generation so that we're evolving, uh, more and
right.
more with each and becoming more hybrid.
Right. Well, you know what? Maybe what they're trying to do is speed up the process where, maybe, evolution would take a lot longer for us to
Right.
get to that point. Let's say that thing with the mind, that being able to manipulate or with your mind, it would
Mhm.
take us maybe thousands of years. And they're saying, well, let's speed this up a little bit
Yeah.
so that, you get to the point where, we'll be able to take you and train you. How's that?
Yeah.
Without putting a chip in your brain or something in
Right.
your brain,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of deal.
Yeah, we've
But
got a lot of helpers. We've got a lot of helpers. And there have you heard of the whole starseed thing?
yes.
Okay, so that's a big part of it too. Um, the Starseed Envoy program, and this goes back to we, like me and you and
Hmm.
the viewers of your show, volunteered to
Hmm.
come down here and incarnate. So we're originally extraterrestrial. We're not
Like
from
indigo
here.
children and things of this nature. I mean, there's different generations. I know they have a different name
Yep.
for them.
Hmm.
Um,
Crystal
as far as
children.
crystal children, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. So we are old souls, and that's probably why we, feel different on Earth, or we just
mhm.
think about things differently. Some of us, maybe more psychic or just more intuitive, not even necessarily
Yes,
like, crazy gifts, but you're intuitive. You always had that gut feeling. Uh,
yes,
so we've been I mean, that's why we're here to help speed up the process because
right,
humanity was going down a bad path, but then plus the deal that the bad government,
right.
I think Majestic 12 or
Hmm.
whatever that group made with the negative ETs, like it wasn't going to be going good. So we're here to
Right.
help
Exactly,
shift the tide.
exactly, exactly. The ones that are like that see beyond, the possibilities as far as into the future, because really that's really what you got to look at
Hmm.
is what's going to happen if we are on that brink
Hmm.
of, whether you want to call it going into the age of Aquarius, we become more enlightened. Like you said, going beyond, as far as our vibrations,
Hmm.
can we go into these higher vibrations but we can't do it if we're stuck mentally, because what happens up here is really what dictates what happens with our bodies or how we feel.
Yeah.
So you can't, how can I say, vibrate in a higher frequency, if you want to call it that,
Mhm.
maybe to maybe actually see them or whatever, if we're like all caught up with our, hey, I've
Mhm.
got to get to work on time. Don't get me wrong. I believe in getting to work on time, but you know how we get caught up in the daily grind kind of deal
Yeah.
and we don't go beyond, what our potential. How's that?
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly, and I think that was part of what COVID was supposed to do, make
Yes.
us stop. I think ultimately this is divinely being orchestrated, um,
Mhm.
and this is just a very, very important time right now,
Yes.
not even just for us, but for the rest. Apparently, what happens on Earth is gonna affect the rest of the galaxy and possibly
Okay.
even the whole universe. It's like a really, really big deal what's happening
Yes.
right now.
I think a lot of things. Yeah, it's like you always everybody gets and I know everybody will like, yeah, most important moment is the moment you're living. But no, I do feel like there's something momentous like
Mhm,
coming down the pike for us. More
mhm,
than, you know, some of the things that we see. And I don't know, maybe it is disclosure or something. Something's gonna happen because I think
mhm.
we were at the brink of it, like
Yeah.
and yeah, I think a lot of people are gonna be having that oh my God moment.
Mhm, mhm.
But you can't how can I tell you, you can't and in my experience, whether it's an individual or as a group, we're very resistant to change. We
Yeah,
want to stay in our comfort zone. Even if
yeah.
we know that maybe the change could bring better or things for us,
Mhm.
we like what we know. We're very simple. We're driven by pain or pleasure, and for us, the unknown is equivalent to pain. So a
Yeah,
lot of us, either individually or as a group, want to hang on to what we know and just let's just stay here. We know what this is all about.
yeah.
But I think they're about to go. Nope. There you
Yeah,
go.
because then we have to also open our eyes to all of the corruption and all of the things that
Yes.
happen
Yes.
going
Yes.
on. We have to face the
No, I
music
think I think a
essentially.
lot of people have been seeing things, and it's like, and I know sometimes when things happen a lot at the in the moment, it may seem overwhelming,
Yeah,
but eventually you get beyond it. As a matter of fact, when you look back on it, if you look individual at your life, you'll see certain moments that at that moment you'll be like, oh my God, that was. Then you look back and you say, I made it. It's okay. It wasn't as bad as I thought,
yeah,
et cetera, et cetera. Especially if you expect that good things are going to come out of it. And I think that's
mhm,
really what it's about. That's just me being what is it? An optimist.
yeah,
What is it? Like in Einstein's, I believe we live in a friendly universe kind of deal,
yeah,
which I'd rather believe that than that we live in a hostile universe.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
that's
definitely. Yeah, I think
except for the
most of it.
reptilians.
Yeah, it's mostly, and apparently they got kicked out of a different universe.
Oh boy. I wonder why. No.
Yeah,
But
for
anyway,
starting trouble.
Lily, I know that you told me that we could only speak for an hour, and I don't want to keep you beyond that. I want to tell you, it's been great to talk to you. For my podcast listeners, what is your website address? What's your information?
My website is lilynovaspaceart.com. That's
Okay.
my website, and then my YouTube channel is Lily Nova Starseed, and I do uh, all different types of videos. How teach people how to make contact with star beings and meditations, developing
Okay.
psychic abilities, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. Do you do any remote viewing?
I do, and I just posted the video recently from the Miami
Hmm.
Mall incident. I do
Oh,
like to do
okay.
that too. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I'm into the remote viewing. I'm into the. You got to be careful though what you're doing because when you go out there, sometimes you could run into weird stuff. But the remote
Yeah.
viewing is very interesting. Yeah, people don't understand out there. That's like no man's land. Good and bad. Everybody like of the old Wild West. You never know what you're gonna. That's that kind of deal.
Yeah, you need to have some protocols and
Yes.
protection and things. Yeah, you need to know what you're doing.
Yes. Again, it
Yeah,
has been absolutely wonderful to speak to you. I'm going to put a link to your website and the YouTube channel on the credits of the show, but
awesome.
we'll be talking again soon because I really am really interested in what we were talking about here.
Thank you. Yeah, it was so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having
Likewise.
me on.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. That was great. Wasn't that great? She told me ahead of time that she could only be on here for an hour, so that's why I didn't want to like
keep her beyond that time. I know that when you got to do something, you got to go. But anyway, I hope you like that. I think it's fascinating because I haven't really looked at too much footage of what they said happened in Miami at the mall, that they saw these 7-foot things walking, and I have to look at it. And how can I tell you? Sometimes it's better to wait a little bit because right when that happened, there was so much. What's the word I'm looking for? It got so crazy. Some of the things that were being said that it was like, okay, what you know? And again, looking at what I do know that a bunch of police officers were dispatched. I'm thinking, "W- normally they manpower is precious in whatever department you're at. So you don't send a bunch of people rushing over to a scene, pulling them off of being somewhere else unless there's something credible there. So what was there? What did they see something they couldn't understand? Something I don't know. And I saw a grainy kind of film. I hate to say this, but I'm so careful because any video that's put out there can be manipulated, especially if it's like one of these, like, because, if it's like far away, uh, it could be anything. And I'm not saying it's not legitimate. It might be legitimate, but I'm very cautious when it comes to saying that's really what it is. Because let's face it, it could, especially when it's just fresh off the press, clickbait. It doesn't really matter if 2 weeks from now everybody finds out that this video was just made up. I made a bunch of money because everybody and their second cousin clicked on it. So I got to look up on that. And then now is better. Things, the fakes have been identified, and maybe there's somebody with. And I mean, I do know a lot of. As a matter of fact, I've got a lot of police officers. If that location was where it is, I believe it was City of Miami Police who responded versus Miami-Dade, which is the county police. I do have people that I know in City of Miami Police that I could contact and find out, hey, what's the skinny on this? Was there some 7-foot alien walking around downtown, or what happened with that? You know, because I know exactly where that happened at Bayfront. I know exactly where that's at. That's on the water and that whole area. Yeah. So that's very curious to see. Yeah, let me see. I'll follow up with a report with you guys. But yeah, as you could tell, she's a brave girl. Let me tell you something. Stargazing out in the park at 2 a.m. Nah, I'm sorry. I like to stargaze, but you know, and if I see something coming towards me, it's leaving. But I have to admit, when she was out there, she thinks I'm going to think twice about turning my car on in case they're not aware of me. Which tells me at that point she was still unsure. You know, are they friendly, or am I going to be taken up there and get experimented on? Because I think that's the the question everybody always has in their mind. If they're willing to go the extra step of believing, hey, extraterrestrials exist and they're here, are they friendly? Are they not friendly? Or not? In other words, they're not friendly, but they don't hate us, or they out and out are psychopathic about us. And I think that's the one that worries most people. And recently, I did an article which talked about that there's some scientists who think that you know how we're always sending out all these messages from Earth, hey, come and talk to us, ET. And basically, what they're saying is that if we ever did receive some type of answer, that we shouldn't answer the phone at all. Because they're describing where, everybody thinks that if there's some type of negative repercussion with ETs, like they're going to send their spaceship. Think of Independence Day. How's that? They're saying that necessarily might not be. They said they could send, let's say they they answer and they say, well, you know what? We're going to give you all the cure to cancer. So all your problems, just download this file. This is a nanobot or something that's going to help you guys out. We're going to give you this technology. We download it. And the next thing you know, it brings down all our systems. Uh, Same thing could be done with a disease. In other words, there's a million ways from Sunday that they could send something to us via a message without necessarily sending out battleships to come and conquer us. All right. Um, they could same thing. They could say, "Hey, we're going to like I said, we're going to give you the cure for multiple terminal diseases that we have now. We're going to give you the cure for them. All you need to do is download this." And they said that in the article, which is, even if there's some scientists or some heads of that will say, "Well, we got to think about this," they'll think about what if we're actually kind of like sharpening the knives for our own neck, that eventually they will be overwhelmed by other factions. They'll say, "No, no, no, we've got to accept this, because if we can find the cure for these diseases, these illnesses, or whatever it is that they're going to solve for us, we should have it." And then, once it's accepted, then it's too late to find out, "Oh, wow, we shouldn't have done that." And let me tell you that I find that very intriguing, because we always think of that if ET was going to do us wrong, it's going to be like they're going to send all these ships running, basically bombing us or whatever, lasering us, War of the Worlds kind of deal. And no, there's a lot of other ways that they could basically decimate us. Nanobots, uh, even our electronics, our computers, everything that makes. Let's face it, most of our, how can I tell, infrastructure, a lot of it runs on computer chips or computerized or everything. Yeah, there might be a human like this at the keyboard, but whatever it is, fill in the blank, runs on some type of computer system. All right. And by this, I'm not even talking EMP or anything like that. What I'm talking about here is like and I'm sure everybody's aware, like a virus. Like, you say, oh, you download something into your computer uh hard drive, and it corrupts it, or ransomware, some version of that, but obviously on a much larger scale. Things of that nature, where yeah, there is that version of, like, we shouldn't answer the phone when the ET calls. Or they mention also where the ETs will say, "Hey, if you don't do whatever it is, download, we're going to make your sun go supernova." How do you find out? Are they bluffing, or are they really going to do that? Hmm. Again, what a predicament, right? And the question begs to be asked: do you think that without extraterrestrial help, could we figure things out? Maybe slower, but we could figure this out. I or are we better off gambling in exchange for whether it's technological advances, or what Lily was describing, where we could develop our mental facilities, or how telekinetic abilities faster, because we've got a mentor, as in an ET, showing us how we could do it. I mean, how does that work? And you know what? I agree. And I know this might not be usually, whenever you have a civilization that is superior technologically, has contact with another civilization or culture that is not, in some way, shape, or form, the one that's lesser gets, what's the word? What's the acceptable word? Suffers for it. Maybe not immediately, but down the road, something happens. Like, in other words, you we suffer for it. And again, so I guess I'd rather take the slow road, but then that might be a moot point, because they might be around here, and it's like, yeah, Marlene, this that ship came and went, as far as us being left to our own devices to figure things out, for better or for worse, mistakes or no mistakes. Um, because I think we are capable. I'm a humanist, not a transhumanist, a humanist. I'm a humanist. I believe in the potential and the goodness of human beings. Um, yeah, we make mistakes, and sometimes we make terrible mistakes, but there's a lot of goodness in us. We are earthlings. All right. The earth is our home. And I know there's people out there that say we came, I don't think so. That's my personal belief. We are earthlings. Uh, we made mistakes, but I think we are all interconnected with all the life forms here on this planet. We are of the earth. And we may travel far and wide eventually into space, but at the end of the day, this is our home. This is our home. And I don't know, we better do the right thing as far as how can I say, looking at it that way. How's that? You know, thinking of it that you want to leave it better than what you found it. Because let's face it, you think of your children, your grandchildren, your descendants, you might not be around, but heck, and you think of all the species and all the animals that we have. And by the way, there's people out there that they talk about extinction and things like that. And there's always, if you go, there's always a certain amount of life forms that historically will go extinct just because that's just the way it is for whatever reason. Okay. And even now they're discovering different types of versions of different animals that are brand new species. The other day, what was it? Was I reading about a National Geographic? I can't remember what it was. It's some different type of frog. Uh, they just discovered this huge out in the Amazon where they thought nothing was out there. They've basically discovered where at some point there was this huge civilization as far as the buildings that they're discovering what was their city. Which of course what happens is eventually it gets covered over with jungle. And I mean there's a lot uh, about us that I think is to help us understand ourselves. And that's I don't know. I don't know. Do we want ET in the mix? It sounds exciting, but I'm still out on that one. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked the show. I hope you liked listening to Lily's story. I think it was fascinating. Again, I will put a link to her website on the credits of the show. Make sure to visit her, especially if you want a reading. If you want to, she sounds like she's got a bunch of pictures about the things that she's seen with that she's been able to record. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter at mppellicer.com. I have links there for my Substack newsletter. Same thing. Go to miamighostchronicles.com, mppellicer.com. I have links for videos, for podcasts, for you name it. It's there. And any new books, if I ever get my new book out the door. Yeah, talk about procrastinating. I'm dragging my you-know-what on this book. My you-know-what. Hopefully it's going to be like the War and Peace. At this point, it's going to go into like 400 pages. At the rate I'm going. Every time I'm ready to end it, it's like, no, wait. I can add this to the story. So there you go. Again, guys, thank you so much for being part of my audience. You are all wonderful. And until next time, take care.